Hi, and welcome to the Grace Under Pressure podcast. Today, I'm joined by my lovely better half, Benjamin Willis.
Am I lovely today? Oh, that's good. I'm always lovely. Hooray.
We are doing the first of what I hope to be several kind of book club jiu-jitsu sessions. And today we're looking at the book Talent is Overrated by Geoff Colvin.
Geoff?
Yeah, Geoff Colvin. Geoff Colvin. There we go. And so we are going to be talking about that. I took some notes because that is the English teacher in me. I always have notes and I have to be prepared. Ben, is there anything you want to share before I jump into my notes? Any initial impressions on the book?
Sarah came exceptionally prepared. I was very much fly-by-night reading the book and had some pretty cool takeaways from it. So, you're going to be hearing a lot from Sarah and just a couple of inputs from Ben from time to time. So let's see how this works out.
Yeah, it's the type A and the type B personalities, or the type 5 researcher and the type 5, what is it, the individualist, right?
We'll go with that, sure.
We'll go with that, yeah. This book really focuses and challenges the commonly held belief that successful individuals are inherently talented and that success is largely determined by genetic endowment. And so Colvin argues that this success is primarily a result of deliberate practice and hard work rather than just innate talent. And he explains that successful individuals and organizations focus on developing their skills and abilities through consistent, focused, and deliberate effort rather than by relying on natural talent. And so he explores this idea in a variety of fields, including sports, music, and business, to support his argument, and provides practical advice on how to develop one's own abilities through deliberate practice. And so specifically, I'm kind of wanting to zero in on some concepts found in chapter 5 and 4. And what Colvin really demonstrates is that deliberate practice quite literally can change a person. And so deliberate practice makes the performer perceive, know, and, remember more. And he explains how tennis pros in this chapter, in this section, are able to perceive more. And specifically on page 86, it says, top tennis pros have all pushed themselves to the point where it's tough to achieve any more reaction speed. And the very best, however, have found a way to get around that limitation. Essentially, through deliberate practices, athletes are able to see more than just the path of the ball. They've actually developed a better and faster ability to understand what they see. And it's the nuance of seeing and perceiving, something that comes through deliberately practicing skills. And they understand factors that the average performers don't even notice. And that's on page 88. And in turn, they're able to know more based on less information. And they learn this ability for decisions that are the most critical, those split-second decisions that can win or lose games. And so in general, deliberate practice is effective because it focuses on a focused and systematic way of allowing individuals to target specific weaknesses, set achievable goals, receive feedback, and make necessary adjustments to improve their performance. And by consistently challenging themselves and pushing beyond their comfort zone, individuals using deliberate practice can build up their skills and reach a higher level of mastery in their field. And additionally, deliberate practice helps build the neural connections needed to perform, certain complex tasks, making it easier to perform those tasks fluently in the future. And so you may be asking now, those are just a fraction. I'm not even kidding. Those are just 3 paragraphs of my notes. I have like 22. But rather than just read a dissertation, I want to open it up to conversation. So all that said, Ben, what did you think on his notes on deliberate practice versus just innate talent?
So first of all, you are very much an English teacher. I thought we were going to go just bit by bit discussing it. No. You went straight to the notes and just kept going.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And you could have kept going.
I have 3 pages, folks.
That's ridiculous. But anyway, it really is something that's fascinating to have read over. And then when you start thinking about it, you watch it in real life. And then you can apply it to certain aspects on the things that you like. For me specifically, it's been in training, I have kind of changed the pace. A younger version of me was just going extremely hard a lot of the time. And as I've aged, and I'm not old per se,
No.
but at 29, I can't do what 19, 20, 21-year-old high school decent level wrestler used to be able to do. And so it's been cool just to take a step back, and with my primary training partners, like, hey, we're going to train almost every day, bit by bit by bit. We're deliberately focusing on just movement. If we want to focus on a specific technique, that's what we're going to focus on. And just seeing how deliberately changing the pace over a period of just a few weeks to a month and a half. And then when you finally say, all right, it's time to now push it for real, just how easily it just changes the entire demeanor of a real role. And I kind of stole that concept from a guy named Faraz Sahabi, who was George St. Pierre's coach, in that, like, you were deliberately focusing on the technique. It's not just, all right, we do this move 3 times and we're done. It's like, okay, we are focusing. We're trying to actively hit it, focus on trying to find the pathway to it. And it's really been enlightening and fun just to see that development. I'm kind of enjoying looking forward to how it's going to change my game.
And I think that's, making that time and carving out that time to specifically develop those techniques in a deliberate way. And I think too often, and I think it just depends gym to gym, right, and personality to personality. Sometimes we downplay the importance of drilling and making those movements intentional. Because, the expression is what? Drillers make killers, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's so true. You think about it, if you don't have the technique and you haven't done 1,000 hours, 10,000, excuse me. I dropped a 0 there. But if you haven't done that kind of time on the mat drilling, how on earth are you going to actually be able to implement that in a role, right?
Well, I would even say that it's not necessarily just doing the movement itself. Like, obviously, you can hit an arm bar on a static drill partner, static dummy, but you need that little bit of live movement. And it's not necessarily 100% resistance. It's, hey, we're going to go back and forth, constantly move, catch and release. If you know you caught the arm bar, great, release, and let imagine that your partner escaped.
Right.
What do they do from there?
Got you. So it's kind of like the essence of flow rolling, correct?
It's flow, but people have taken flow maybe a little too easily. This is flow. I would call it flow plus. Like, it's got a little pace to it.
So it's the catch and release model.
And I like to. You want to be able to sweat at the end of it all.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be so sore and banged up and beat up
that you can't train later.
That you can't train the next day.
Right. No, and I think that's really good. And I think that kind of goes into the next level of, like, deliberate practice, because it's one thing to have those hours on the mat or those hours on, the green space. Isn't that what they call it with, I almost said football, with golf, right? When you're teeing up, there's, work with me here, Ben. I'm trying to make the illusions.
In no way, shape, or form am I a golfer. So
I am not either,
no
but there's references in the book, so I'm trying to draw on those references. Yes, and so Tiger Woods, he had practiced those moves, ad nauseum, so that it becomes muscle memory. But a very vital part of that is feedback, which is what I wanted to kind of pivot into. With jiu-jitsu, you have the drilling, you have the rolling or the sparring, if you're in a different martial art that doesn't call it rolling. But then you get feedback. And I think sometimes when we do the rolls, we don't get good quality feedback. It's just, you may do a really cool move and then somebody might ask you, and I've had that happen to me before, man, how'd you get that? I have no idea. It just happened. So I don't know. The feedback seems to be something that some coaches do very well. Others maybe don't do as much.
So a quality coach is always going to be able to find little things to adjust and let you know, but also let you figure it out on your own sometimes. You can't just say, oh, coach, do it. Coach will tell me to do it like this. Sometimes it's just not an option. You have to be able to adjust. And hey, instead of doing it like so, maybe adjust it in this way, see how that works. Feedback is necessary. We look at ourselves with rose-tinted glasses. Like, I'm the best there's ever been. Obviously not. That's not the truth. And you need an honest coach with quality input that knows what they're doing and knows what they're doing maybe to an extent better than you. They might not be able to do it as well as you, but they may have the knowledge base.
Right.
Years and years of experience. Like Tiger Woods has a coach.
Right.
Do you think that guy can beat Tiger Woods in a game of golf? No.
Probably not. Yeah.
But then there's also really cool in this day and age is film.
Yeah.
We see absolutely everything we do. Almost everything, especially in competition scene, is out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The proliferation of the game has come from YouTube and these websites where people put their matches on film.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. And immediate feedback. Did that work? Oh, wow. That's really cool. How did they do that? So I look at film as another form of feedback. And I believe that was actually mentioned in the book, in which people film themselves in their golf swings when they're alone. They don't have a coach giving them that feedback.
Right. I think, now I didn't play football, but I know that there is those sessions where the players will look at film. Am I not mistaken on that?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a kind of a review session on seeing what did and didn't work the previous week, and maybe even look at the next week's game, see what they're doing, seeing if there's any tells. Football is one of those sports where feedback is constant, especially when it's such a team-focused thing. All parts have to be moving in unison at the right time in the right places,
right?
All while doing completely different jobs.
And so maybe the film idea. Maybe if it wasn't a weird thing, if you got permission, from your coach or something like that in a gym, if you could get permission to video your own rounds in class, maybe you could see what was or what wasn't working. Even your roles, and to see, how can you iron out your game plan? What could you do in preparation of, a match coming up? I'm thinking about for myself, even getting onto the mats again for an IBJJF, videoing my game plan with different body types of, what if they do this or what if they do that? Does that work? What can I do to adjust here? Or if they step here, what are my options? Did this work? Did that not work? Maybe.
That'd be interesting. I've never seen film of a practice per se, but I don't see why it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It just might not be as serious. It might not be a true live go. Because a lot of times film is, all right, let's see what the real deal looked like.
Yeah, yeah. But, film feedback, however you can get it, I think would be just ideal for anyone, reading this. And I think one thing I really did appreciate about the book is that so often, that is not the cliche, but the kind of the go-to, I don't want to say excuse, but something that people say, well, I'm just not talented enough.
No, that's obviously there are certain levels of athleticism. Some people are born a stronger human being. There is a base level. But athleticism, to an extent, can absolutely be taught if practiced appropriately. It really all depends on what are you willing to put in outside of just the basic hours. You can't just show up to the very, very beginner classes, do your move 3 times, and then do your next move 3 times, and then roll for 20 minutes and call that a class.
Right.
Eventually you keep doing that, you'll get fine at jiu-jitsu, you'll get a rank.
Yeah.
But are you going to get to that true next level? There's no way.
Yeah.
That kind of goes into my biggest takeaway was Jerry Rice. They did some really cool math for Jerry Rice. We all know Jerry Rice is a product of Mississippi Valley State University, probably one of the greatest wide receivers in history. They did the math and they said that his actual time playing football in game in the NFL was some ridiculously low percentage, like less than 1%. The amount of extra work Jerry put in, not even just in his regular day-to-day practices, but alone, grinding it out, perfecting his art. That is how Jerry became so prolific in the game. Like he probably spent like less than 1% in game, somewhere around 20% in practice, and everything else was on his own. He would run routes. I remember hearing stories about when he was a young man, like before he went to even college, he would chase horses in fields. And then when he got to San Francisco, he had this mountain he used to run. And just keep going and keep going. And then he would bring people out with him, and they couldn't keep up with him. All that is what made Jerry Rice great. It's the time outside of the basics that put him to the next level.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and what I love about this book is that it's not just sports he talks about, right? He talks about everything, from, academics are in there, but business is kind of what he went back into. But I mean, as a teacher, I can tell if somebody's really naturally talented and like they don't have to seemingly work for the good grade, which the Lord bless them with that ability to understand, at least on my end of the academic field with English and humanities. But they're just naturally gifted writers. But I can tell those who are putting in the work, that are wanting to do well and they're wanting to hone their craft, which sounds really, prestigious, when I put it that way. But, they're wanting to be better and they're wanting to work hard. They want to get good at it. And they're going to write, over the long term, they're going to be better writers than the ones who might be naturally gifted because they're putting in those hours and they are devouring different ways to approach writing. And I can tell, teachers can tell, coaches can tell, bosses can tell, or you may be the boss, but you can tell those people who are working and putting in those hours. It's just a better quality product, whether that be your performance in sports, business, academics. I'm not going to say that, every single time you put in hours, you're going to win. You put in 10,000 hours, you're automatically going to be the best. Well, no, that's not the case. There's other people who are hardworking and they may have talent. And those two together, it's just a deadly combination, right? But you're going to be so much better off than the person who is naturally gifted and just lazy beyond belief.
And that was, when you get to the academic field, you kind of reminded me like, oh, I used to be that highly talented kid in high school. Then I get to a very difficult high school compared to what I had come from. Like, oh, I'm just average now. And then I go to a public university and like, okay, so that barely getting by at that new private high school doesn't cut it even at the college level. I have to work now. And it was very difficult to learn how to put in that work. Like it took me probably the first year and a half of getting my butt kicked by college courses. Like, oh, okay, this isn't a cakewalk anymore. And it was a difficult wake-up call. And I knew some people that I had known for years. I'm like, I know I'm smarter than this person. But they buckled down, they focused, they did everything that was asked of them. And they're highly successful people. And that's really cool to see people that I felt I was more naturally talented than become extremely hardworking, extremely talented, extremely successful people. And it was a lesson learned on my part. And it's kind of woken me up and made me like, all right, you got to put in the work every day to get the results. You can't just, what do they call it, phone it in.
Yeah, you can't phone it in. Yeah. And so I think this idea of deliberate practice is something that it's something that I think we naturally understand the importance of. I mean, if you step back and you really, think about it and you kind of break down that cliche of, oh, well, this person's just talented. They just got this innate ability. Sometimes what we take is, oh, well, they just have this innate ability. Well, actually, if you look behind the curtain, no, it's thousands of man hours trying to be the best at something.
Yeah.
And I think, of course, again, Colvin, is looking at all these different areas of life, whether it be sports and business. I think he's really focusing on the business part, to be honest with you. But it really does, when you are really devoting time to something, it just makes those, he talks about how it reshapes your brain and how it makes those connections stronger in your brain so that when you are doing a move, it is second nature. You're not having to think about it. Like the idea that the tennis players, they're able to predict and know exactly where that ball is going when it's served, just because they have spent so many hours working on that.
Do you remember what was the tell?
I can't remember right off the top.
It was body language.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so, like, they were watching the server's body, and just by the angle and the approach, they're like, all right, this is where the ball is going to be, and they're making that movement beforehand.
They're able to be, and that's just so cool how in the sports and with your brain, you were able to make up. There's only so fast a reaction time can get. So you're having to make predictions based on very little information. It's not that they're superhuman. It's just that they've saturated themselves in it, and that allows them to be like, okay, I'm going to be going, left 2 steps, it's going to be there, or right, 1 step is going to be there. That's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, and it does apply to things outside of just sport. It's kind of like me in work. At times, like when I first took over my department, I had no clue how to react to certain problems. Well, you run into that problem 5 to 6 times, all of a sudden, all right, well, let's improve from last time. Let's see if we make an adjustment. Okay, I see the problem. All right, it was better. Well, it was better, but was it as good as it could have been? No. And it's that constant desire and constant ways of looking to improve it, which makes it really cool. Just
Yeah, it's kind of like, and it forces you to be actively engaged, right? It forces you to take stock of what's going on in your department, going on in whatever endeavor it is that you're engaged in, right? To see what are those weaknesses and try different things and making that better. I think you talked about with Benjamin Franklin with becoming just this prolific essayist, and he would spend all this time, doing these drills with writing, that over time he got better and better and better and better. It's finding ways. There's different ways to practice, deliberate practice with sports. And that's kind of how, I'm reading it to kind of implement it into even my game, into when I'm coaching, of what can we do to fill in those gaps? What are some, strategies we can use? But I just like the idea that no matter what your field is you're wanting to get better in, there are ways you can practice to get better, but the first way to get better is to identify what am I struggling in, what am I lacking in, and that all comes back to feedback. So it's just this wonderful thing that no man is an island. You have to have feedback. You have to have a community to build you up, I think.
Yeah, you can't, no one can do it on their own. No great athlete, no great businessman didn't come up without some semblance of support. Obviously, like say in business, say you came up completely on your own, or you perceived it as such. Well, who recognized that you had the drive? Who recognized that you had the talent and the desire to improve yourself to get to that next level? There's always somebody that's going to pull you up and or push you to get to the next degree if they are vested in you. And
that's key, is finding people who are vested in you. Some people are fortunate that that's a family member. Other people, it may be a community member. And I mean, for those who don't think anyone is vested in you, you're vested in you. You can find people and seek out mentors, seek out coaches that can see something, that you see something in them and you want to emulate it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is it biblical that God helps those that help themselves? Or is that just something that people made up?
I'd have to go back and look and see that, but I think it's taken from Scripture, but the idea, that God helps those who helps themselves, but I don't think that's in Scripture specifically.
Okay, well, it's still a concept that a lot of people can get behind. Like, why would I give somebody a complete and utter handout? Like, obviously, everybody goes through hard times and struggles. Everybody's going to need help at some point. But I feel more strongly and more willing to help someone if I see, hey, they're putting in what they can, they're trying, and they're just not quite getting it. Well, let's give them a little feedback. Let's see if we can help them out a little bit.
Yeah.
Outside a person is like, oh, I can't do it. Now, I think you can, but you're going to try a little bit harder? No, I'm good. All right, I'll leave you alone.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, I'm going to say for worse, not for better or for worse. I think it's for worse that so many people in our culture and our society today, they're very quick to quit and give up. There's not that, for some people, it seems in the general culture, they're very quick to play a victim mentality that I can't get better, that everything's stacked against me. But, if you believe that, that's what you're going to become. There's so much of, getting better is, wanting to improve, wanting to get better. By no means does that mean that it's easy. By no means does that mean that you're not going to have to work hard. And you may take 2 steps forward and 1 step back at times. But if anything, it's that desire to improve, that desire to put in those man hours, and seeking out people who do want the best for you. That's, if anything I've read, that I've gathered from this book and just reflecting on life in general with it, is that if you want to improve, you have to make that a mission, right?
Oh, yeah. If you have to improve, you have to focus and you have to understand, this is the goal. This is the time frame. Let's figure it out. And that's on you at that point.
And I think he also mentioned with corporations, they want to make, better leaders, better managers, and, the corporation has to implement an actual plan, a set of deliberate practice, this idea of, having an objective, giving feedback, having measurable steps to improve, because you can say all the right things, but you actually have to put your money where your mouth is. You need to have a game plan, you need to have steps to improve, and having that feedback system that's actually going to work,
Business side's a lot harder than sports.
Yes, it is. And it's one of those things when they got to the business side, I'm like, I don't know how that works, because that's not my world.
Easier said than done.
Yes, it is. And even the idea of being a master in your field, as a teacher, that's something well, how do I measure mastery with that? How do you, challenge yourself to improve? And that's a whole question of, pedagogy. Or no, I can't even say
pedagogy.
Pedagogy. Thank you. The English teacher here cannot pronounce things to save her life today.
Who's the licensed English teacher?
I am as well. Thank you,
You're
sir.
licensed?
Yes.
What? With the state?
With the independent school system, yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know they had a license.
Yes, they do. Yes, Ben.
Oh, congratulations.
I have 2 master's degrees. Come on. Anyway, all that to say, Ben trying to throw me under the bus very quickly. No.
Just get one over on you, that's all.
Anyway, but all that to say, getting back to jiu-jitsu, I think a lot of ways, the question might be, well, how can I implement this in my training? Well, I'm glad that you asked, listener. One thing that I have learned kind of over my 6+ years of training is, trying to do some self-reflection in your own rolling. What do you struggle with? Is it the arm bar? Is it, getting out of mount, which everybody struggles with? Is it getting out of whatever situation it is, or nailing this particular submission? And, find what that is, and then spend a significant amount of time. If you're drilling with someone or doing a flow roll situation, say, hey, I want to start in this position, or I want to start from this setup, and do that consistently. Now, it doesn't have to be every single time, but try to do as many hours as you can filling in that weakness. Because if you are deliberately trying to fill in that weakness, over time, your body is going to learn, okay, this didn't work, this did work. If you're getting feedback from your coach, they're going to say, okay, well, let's try this angle. Okay, well, let's try this instead. Because there's all these biomechanics that you're going to have to implement, especially if it's a bigger opponent, smaller opponent, whatever it may be. And learning to use your leverage, your momentum. Maybe that submission in that traditional setup is not going to be the best for you. Maybe let's try this variation. And so by zeroing in and trying to really hone in on that particular weakness that you are seeing in your own game, or that a coach is seeing in your own game, that's going to improve your overall jiu-jitsu. And it may be a move that you're not going to implement. It may be something that you're just getting caught in it, or you just really want to fill in that hole. And that's fine, if you don't use it, but now you know how to, implement it if you need to, or get out of it even.
I heard a recent concept, as if you're a skier and you're skiing through trees, what do you focus on? Do you focus on the trees, or do you focus on the path? Well, if you focus on the trees, all you see is trees, and all of a sudden your the danger level goes up. But if you focus solely on the path, if you focus solely on the movement or your end goal, what you're trying to do, all of a sudden it becomes so much simpler. Don't focus on what can prevent you from doing it. Like, I can't do it from here because of such and such reason. It's just not the right position. Focus on how to get to it. Focus on the path to, say, that arm bar from guard. How do I position myself? What do I do? Not, this guy's big and strong, I can't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great concept. What are you seeing? Are you seeing the path of the trees? I like that. That's a good metaphor.
Are you seeing the path or the trees?
I like it. Yeah.
I think that's Russ Hobby again.
Oh, okay. or are you seeing Gwyneth Paltrow? Who knows?
Hey, that's Goop.
That Goop. Well, yes. The whole. About the lawsuit, right?
And then she hit somebody skiing.
Well, according to the jury, no, she did not.
She got away with it.
Anyway, but point being, sorry, that was our foray into pop culture. But yeah, I don't know. I think that this is a practice that everyone should and can implement, even if you're not wanting to be a competitor. I think this is something where if you're wanting your game to improve over the long run, you've got to see your weaknesses. You've got to see your strengths. And, of course, everybody's game is different. My husband, Ben, your game is different from mine. And, that's great. That's wonderful. But very different body types. And, jiu-jitsu is for everybody. But, everybody is going to present jiu-jitsu differently. So, or practice jiu-jitsu differently.
Oh, yeah. So that's the cool thing about the art is not everybody has to do the exact same thing. There's so many different ways to submit a person that you can turn the top, the bottom side. It doesn't matter. Do what's comfortable for you. Develop that game and have fun with it.
Yeah. I think that's a good word. Any other points you want to bring up? There's so much. I still have pages of notes, so it's up to you as to.
It's bedtime soon for me. I gotta be up at 3 a.m.
That's right. Yes. So yes, this was our first foray, guys, into the book club. Let us know what you think. If there's another book that you would like us to cover, we have a few on the list that we're going to be getting to, but we would love to hear your feedback, your comments, concerns, whatever you may have. But yes, so if you have any further questions or any other ideas for topics to cover, let us know. We will be covering some classic books like The Gift of Fear. I've referenced that before. I'll be doing the Transforming Trauma with Jiu-Jitsu, all these fun, wonderful books. We'll delve into some psychology books as well, and maybe some philosophy, just because that's the English teacher in me. So it'll be a bit of a book club situation. But yes, anything you want to add, Mr. Ben?
I think you did pretty well there.
Okay, well, I think we crushed it, That's, my opinion, though. I'm a little biased. So thank you for joining us for our first ever book club, and we hope to do one again very soon. Bye, guys.